Let's start with a simple question. Have you ever sent a message that was technically correct, but didn't land well? Maybe you reread it and thought, there's nothing wrong with what I said, but somehow the response you got felt off, a bit defensive, delayed, or even cold. That's the reality of working in a remote environment. We don't have facial expressions. We don't have body language. We don't have tone of voice to soften our message. So what does that leave us with? Our words and our behavior. And here's the important part, especially for us as leaders. Your team doesn't just hear what you say, they feel how you say it. And when we're under pressure, and let's be honest, we all are at times, our emotional state doesn't stay hidden. It leaks out. It shows up in 3 key areas: tone, behavior, and language. Let's start with tone. Tone is the emotional energy behind your message, and in a remote setup, that energy travels through even the shortest chat message. For example, why is this not done yet? Now, compare that with, hey, just checking, what's the status on this? Same goal, very different impact. One creates pressure, the other creates openness. And here's something we often overlook as leaders. The moment you hit send, you lose control of your tone. It no longer lives with you. It lives in the interpretation of the person reading it. So if you're typing while frustrated, rushed, or stressed, your team won't read your intention. They'll read your emotion. That's why self-awareness before you type is not optional. It's leadership. Now let's talk about behavior. In a remote world, your stress shows up in your actions before you even say a word. It can look like suddenly going quiet and unresponsive, micromanaging more than usual, sending multiple follow-ups back to back, or jumping into calls without context. And here's the thing, your team notices all of that. Before you even say hello, your behavior has already answered a question in their mind. Is it safe to work with this leader today? Or do I need to brace myself? That's powerful. And if we're not careful, these small repeated behaviors become our team's daily experience of us. A self-mastered leader doesn't just react in the moment. They recognize their patterns before those patterns define their leadership. Finally, language. This is where everything becomes visible. Your words are the final bridge between what you're feeling and how your team performs. When we're in a reactive state, it often sounds like, this is wrong, fix it. Clear, yes. Helpful, not always. Now compare that with, there are a few things we need to adjust here. Let's go through them together. Same message, but now you've shifted the experience. You're no longer attacking the person, you're addressing the problem. And that small shift does something important. It keeps standards high without lowering psychological safety. And that's where real performance happens. Now here's where this becomes critical. Your stress response doesn't stay with you. It spreads. As a leader, you are an emotional amplifier. When your tone is sharp, your team becomes defensive. When your behavior is unpredictable, your team becomes uncertain. When your language is reactive, your team becomes reactive too. But the opposite is also true. When you are regulated, your tone creates psychological safety. Your behavior builds stability. Your language brings clarity. And when those 3 are present, that's when your team can actually perform at their best. That's influence. Now let's take a look at these scenarios. Scenario 1. missed deadline. Let's start with a situation we've all experienced: missed deadlines. When we respond without self-regulation, we tend to default to blame. It might sound like, "Why is this late again? We've talked about this already." And if we're honest, that usually comes with a frustrated tone, right? The intention might be accountability, but the impact? It often shuts people down. It creates defensiveness, and over time, it slowly damages trust. Now, let's look at the same situation from a regulated leader. Instead of reacting, they pause and shift their approach. They might say, "Hey, I noticed this wasn't completed on time. Can you walk me through what happened so we can address it moving forward?" Same issue, but a completely different experience. You've moved from blame to understanding. And here's why that matters. When people feel safe to explain, you get to the real problem, not just the symptom. And that's where improvement actually happens. Scenario 2. Repeated questions from team member. Now let's talk about something that can easily trigger us as leaders: repeated questions. You've already explained it, maybe even more than once. So the unregulated response sounds like, "I already explained this. Please review the previous message." Clear? Yes. But what does it feel like on the receiving end? Dismissive, unapproachable, and sometimes even a bit embarrassing. And what happens next? People stop asking questions, even when they should. Now, let's shift that into a regulated response. Instead, you say, "Got it. This part can be confusing. Let me clarify it quickly so we're aligned." Notice the difference. You're still addressing the same situation, but now you're doing it with patience and support. You've moved from "I already told you" to "let's make sure we get this right together." And that shift keeps communication open, which is critical in a remote team. Now, let's go into a high-pressure situation. Something urgent just came in. Timelines are tight. Expectations are high. The unregulated response often sounds like, "I need this now. This is urgent." And again, this usually comes with a sense of panic. No context, no support, just pressure. And what does that do to your team? It triggers stress. And stressed teams don't always perform better. They make more mistakes or burn out faster. Now, here's how a regulated leader handles the same urgency. They might say, "Hey team, this just came in and is high priority. I'll need your support to turn this around quickly. Let me know if anything blocks you." Same urgency, but now there's structure. There's clarity. There's support. You've shifted from demanding output to leading the team through the pressure. And that's a big difference. Now the question is, how do we actually apply this in real time? Because these situations don't come with a warning, right? So here's a simple framework you can use immediately. Number 1, pause. Before you hit send, or before you speak, give yourself 3 seconds. That small pause creates space between your reaction and your response. Number 2, check. Ask yourself 2 quick questions. What am I feeling right now? And how might this come across? Because again, your intention is not always what they experience. Number 3, choose. Then make a conscious choice. Adjust your tone, adjust your behavior, adjust your language. Even a small shift can completely change how your message lands. What are we at, Naz? Let's wrap this up. Stress is not the problem. Unmanaged stress is. Because whether we realize it or not, our tone, our behavior, and our language shape how our team experiences us every single day. Leadership is not just about making the right decisions. It's about how people feel when they work with you. And here's the good news. This is something you can control in real time. Not perfectly, but consistently. And that consistency, that's what builds trust, stability, and real leadership influence.